Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Todd Chrisley speaks out for first time since Trump's pardon. Todd Chrisley made his first public comments Friday since being released from prison following a pardon from President Donald Trump. Chrisley thanked the Trump administration and his family's supporters when speaking to reporters at a hotel in Nashville, Tennessee, where he was joined by his daughter, Savannah Chrisley, and his attorney. "I want to thank every person that has prayed for us, that has stayed in the fight, and that fought for the truth to come out," Todd Chrisley said. "I am grateful for it." His wife, Julie Chrisley, did not attend the news conference. The family's first since Todd and Julie Chrisley were released from prison May 28 after being sentenced in November 2022 to a combined 19 years in prison on charges including fraud and tax evasion. Todd Chrisley, whose family rose to fame on the decade-long reality TV show Chrisley Knows Best, was sentenced to 12 years in prison and 16 months of probation, while Julie Chrisley was ordered to serve 7 years in prison and 16 months of probation. The couple was also ordered to pay $17.8 million in restitution. The charges against the Chrisleys stem from activity that occurred at least as early as 2007, when the couple allegedly provided false information to banks and fabricated bank statements when applying for and receiving millions of dollars in loans, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. In 2014, 2 years after the alleged bank fraud scheme ended, the couple is accused of fabricating bank statements and a credit report that had been physically cut and taped or glued together when applying for and obtaining a lease for a home in California. In their sentencing memo, prosecutors said the Chrisleys had engaged in a 15-year fraud spree. Todd Chrisley on Friday continued to maintain his innocence from the crimes to which he and his wife were convicted, saying, "I was convicted of something I did not do." Savannah Chrisley, who had appealed to the Trump administration for pardons for her parents and spoke at the 2024 Republican National Convention, also said she would not have fought so hard for pardons for her parents had she not believed in their innocence. "At the end of the day, I will sit and say as his daughter, I believe in law and order. If I believe that my parents did exactly what they were accused of doing, then yes, you have a consequence for it," she said. "Do I think the consequence should have been 12 years? No, I do not. That's not even a fair sentence if it was true. But I know in my word of hearts it was not true." Both Todd Chrisley and his daughter said that following the pardon, they plan to use their platform to advocate for criminal justice reform. The family has been filming a new reality TV show that will premiere on Lifetime later this year, according to the network. "I understand the shame that's around incarceration, but I refuse to feed into that because shame is like a cancer that just spreads and I have no shame," said Todd Chrisley. "So I will continue to fight for all the guys that I dealt with and that I was blessed to be with at FPC Pensacola, the federal prison camp in Pensacola, Florida. I will continue to expose the injustices that go on there and throughout the U.S. Department of Justice and throughout the Bureau of Prisons." He later added, "We're blessed to have our family back and we're blessed to be coming back to television because we do have a much bigger story to tell now than we ever have." In addition to Savannah Chrisley, Todd and Julie Chrisley are also the parents of 2 sons, Grayson Chrisley and Chase Chrisley. Todd Chrisley also has 2 children from his first marriage, Kyle Chrisley and Lindsay Chrisley. The Chrisleys are also the primary caretakers for Kyle Chrisley's young daughter Chloe. Todd Chrisley said that during his prison sentence, he was able to talk with his children daily and email frequently with Julie Chrisley, who served her sentence at the FMC Lexington prison in Kentucky. The father of 5 said when he woke up at home for the first time in several years, it at first didn't feel real. "I woke up the first morning and I was looking around. I'm like, this is really real. I'm home," Todd Chrisley said. "So I was grateful for our family to be all back in the same room, to be together, to share a meal together, to pray together, and to know that we're still in the fight." Todd Chrisley had rehearsed this moment in his mind 1,000 times during those long, airless nights behind bars. Nights when the world felt impossibly far away, when the clatter of prison doors echoed louder than any insult ever hurled at him on social media. But nothing could truly prepare him for the flashing lights, the roar of cameras, or the wall of questions waiting for him the moment he stepped up to the microphones outside his Nashville home. It was his first public statement since receiving a full pardon from former President Donald Trump, and, true to Todd form, he didn't arrive quietly. Savannah had insisted on brushing down his suit one last time. Chase kept hovering nearby like a bodyguard in training. Nanny Faye sat proudly on the front porch, waving at the cameras like she was greeting guests at Sunday brunch. The only one missing was Julie, still grappling with her own wave of emotion inside the house, but Todd could feel her presence with every breath. He squared his shoulders, smoothed his tie, and stepped forward. "Good mornin', y'all," Todd began, voice calm, carrying that familiar mix of Southern charm and razor honesty. "It feels good to have my feet on Tennessee soil again, and even better to know justice has finally been served." The reporters fired up immediately. "Todd, do you feel vindicated? What do you say to those who claimed your pardon was political? Will you return to reality TV? Are you suing the federal government?" Todd lifted one hand, silencing them with the authority of a man who had weathered storms far darker than the swarm in front of him. "I'm not here today to tear anybody down, though Lord knows a few people deserve to be knocked off their pedestals," he said, lips twitching. "I'm here to talk about gratitude, forgiveness, and the truth finally coming to light." He leaned forward, voice resonating. "For 2 years, my family lived through a nightmare crafted by people who cared more about headlines than facts. I walked into prison an innocent man, and I walked out an innocent man. The only difference is now the world knows it." Inside the house, Savannah watched from the window, her eyes already glossy. She had prayed for this moment, begged for it, fought the public battle while Todd and Julie survived the private one. And as she saw her father stand tall, stronger, calmer, transformed, she felt something settle in her chest for the first time in years. Peace. But Todd wasn't done. "I want to thank President Trump," he said, voice unwavering. "Regardless of what anyone wants to say about him, he took time to understand our case, the corruption behind it, the lies, the manipulation. He didn't have to step in, but he did. And for that, my family into shouts, some supportive, others adversarial. But Todd didn't flinch. A reporter yelled, "Critics say you used political connections to escape punishment. What's your response?" Todd cocked his head in that signature Chrisley way, the one that always signaled a mix of sass and sermon incoming. "Well," he said slowly, "anyone who knows the Chrisleys knows we don't need political connections. We've got God connections. And God delivered me not once, but twice. First through faith, second through a pardon that pulled back the curtain on the injustice we faced." He paused, breathing in deeply. "There were days in prison when I wondered if I would ever see my family again. If I'd hear Nanny Faye fussin' at me about my haircut or Savannah tellin' me I needed to moisturize more. But you know what I learned? When the world strips you of everything, status, freedom, comfort, you learn what truly matters." His voice thickened, but he kept going. "I met men in there who never had a visitor, never had a letter, never had hope. And I made a promise I intend to keep. I will use every ounce of this second chance to shine a light on broken systems, to speak for the forgotten, to uplift the men I left behind." Savannah's hand flew to her mouth. Chase blinked quickly, fighting emotion he'd deny if asked. Nanny Faye wiped her eyes and muttered, "That's my boy, always did know how to give a speech." Reporters scribbled furiously. "Todd, what will you do now? Will the show return? Are you writing a book?" He smiled warmly. "There will be a time for announcements. And trust me, folks, the Chrisley comeback will be sweeter than sweet tea on a hot day." He lifted both hands. "But today is about freedom, about faith, about thanking the people who stood with us, even when it was unpopular." Todd then shifted, growing more serious. "To the critics, and you know who you are, who celebrated our suffering, I forgive you, because holding on to bitterness only chains you to your past. And I am walking forward." The cameras clicked relentlessly. "And lastly," Todd added, eyes softening, "I want to thank Julie, my forever love. She walked through fire with me. She fought when I couldn't. She held our family together with grace, even when everything was falling apart. I'm the man I am because she never gave up." His voice broke, just slightly. "And now, I'm going home to her." Reporters shouted more questions, but Todd stepped back, now flanked by Savannah and Chase, who each grabbed an arm. Nanny Faye joined them moments later, smiling at the cameras like she was posing for a holiday portrait. As they walked toward the front door, the same place Todd had walked out in cuffs years before, Savannah whispered, "Dad, that was perfect." Todd chuckled, brushing a hand across her shoulder. "Darlin', God wrote it. I just delivered it." Inside, Julie was waiting. She opened her arms, eyes wet, and Todd stepped into her embrace as though returning to the safest place he'd ever known. Outside, reporters buzzed. Commentators speculated. The internet exploded. Inside, however, it was quiet, peaceful, a new beginning. And as Todd closed the door behind him, he whispered the only words that mattered anymore. "Thank you, Father, for bringing me home."